I'm Mary, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you some fantasy recommendations that feature forced proximity, which also means there's only one bed. So I'm super stoked to give you some recommendations for these. Honestly, one of my favorite tropes is forced proximity, and it's even better when that forced proximity also features one bed. They're like, oh no, what did we do? We gotta share a bed and then it gets sexy. So we're gonna get into those. I have like 6+ recommendations for you. Some of them are YA, some of them are new adult, so you get a little mixture. But before we get into that, I do have a quick unboxing for you guys because it does pertain to fantasy stuff. So quickly before we get into the recommendations, I do have a little baby unboxing for Hello Lovely box because I am a rat for them. I freaking love their company just anyway. Becca is just like the sweetest person in the entire freaking world. But they have really fun like bookish apparel and then just bookish merch in general. Like, so if you're a huge romance reader, they have so many romance stuff, but they also have some really cool new stuff to do with fantasy readers. So that's why I was like, oh, perfect for this video. So there's a couple things that I want to go into, but first things first, in here, we have all my new stuff. I'm so excited. So the first thing, I'm gonna wear this like literally after this. Perfect. Oh, it's so soft. It says Introvert Book Club, no meetings, pants optional, and it is a light blue tank top. I live in tank tops all the time. I also like these kinds of ones that are like the really thin straps as well. Then we have the one that pertains to this video. Are you guys ready for this? I'm so excited. Oh, this is such a sick color. Fantasy Readers Club, which is what this is. We're fantasy readers. And on the back it says, stay wild and be free because new worlds, wonder, and fate. And doesn't that just give you also Night Court vibes? Such Night Court vibes. So this is super cool. This is in their shop right now. It was just added for the newest drop. And they have like 3 different tie-dye options. So there's this color. I don't remember what the other colors are. I know blue is one of the options, but I also, like, as a brunette, green just really suits me. So I'm very, very stoked for this one. I'm gonna like live in it. And then we have the mug. And this mug is literally me. I'm so excited for this. So here is the mug. Let me show you a close-up. So it says, I washed my hair for this, and that's what the little mug looks like. It's actually a really nice size as well. And like, you see how beautiful and long my hair is. I wash my hair once a week just because that's how I maintain it, and that's what keeps it the like healthiest. But say I have to like do something really special, like I will wash it more than once a week. And like, if I have to wash my hair more than once a week for you, like that is commitment because like really I washed my hair for this. So I was like, yes, perfect. So anyway, now that that's over, now that I've shown you all that stuff, let's get into my forced proximity fantasy recommendations. So I'm gonna start with a young adult classic. If I had to recommend a series to anyone in the entire world, it would be this duology, and that is, freaking hell, Daughter of the Pirate King by Trisha Levensell. This duology is my life. I freaking love it. It's like one of my favorite duologies of all time, but the very first book does feature a there's only one bed trope, and it's also like hella forced proximity because they're on a boat. Okay, so this follows Alosa, and she is the daughter of the Pirate King, and her father, the Pirate King, has tasked her with stealing this piece of a map from an enemy ship. And she's like very well renowned for being like a kick-ass pirate herself. She's so badass, and she purposely gets herself captured by the enemy ship so she can then like, you know, try and find the piece of the map. The only problem is that the first mate, Ruthen, is like kind of suspicious that they managed to capture her so easily, so he's like keeping an eye on her. And oh my god, their romance is like one of my favorites. The banter in this is A+. Alosa is so kick-ass, and I just love like how they're so forced to be like next to each other because like she's his captive and there's only one. Oh, it's so good. Definitely one of my favorite forced proximity tropes. Then new adult wise, we have Bridge Kingdom by Danielle Jensen. This is a duology, but like it's also a longer series. Like there's going to be other companion novels to the duology. But oh my freaking god. You're following Lara, and she is one of 12 princesses to the king, and they have all been raised in seclusion and trained to be spies so that one of them will one day be chosen to be married off to the enemy king to then infiltrate and like bring him down. And Lara is that chosen princess. She is arranged to be married to the enemy king. She gets there and she's like, okay, now that I'm here, I'm gonna act like a very docile, very aloof princess. And as I'm doing that, I'm gonna find out all your secrets and I'm gonna bring your country to its knees so my father can rule you instead. The only problem is that she ends up actually falling for him, and she also begins to realize that maybe what she's been taught her entire life is actually a lie. I loved this. Lara is really kick-ass. It was just a really fun fantasy novel overall. For a new adult, it's actually not that spicy until like the very, very end where like things had to kind of culminate. But like, I loved it. I also think it's like a great intro to the new adult genre if that is something you are interested in. But as a fantasy reader, this is just like so amazing, especially as like a Throne of Glass fan. Next we have a duology that has forced proximity, and then the sequel has a there's only one bed trope to it, and that is Crown of Coral and Pearl by Mara Ruthen. I do not see this series talked about enough anywhere, and it makes me so sad because I freaking love this book. So in this world, the princes of Ilara always marry a maiden, the most beautiful maiden from the island kingdom of Verenia. And what happens is the most recent crown prince has come find a bride from Verenia, and he ends up picking Zadie, who is a complete and utter beauty. She has a twin sister named Noor, but Noor has a scar on her cheek, and so she's not considered perfect. The only problem is that when Zadie ends up getting into a terrible accident, Noor is sent in her place to then be married to this prince. And when she gets there, she ends up uncovering a deep and dark secret about Ilara and how they plan on possibly bringing her kingdom of Verenia to its knees. I love this series. It has like a really great political intrigue plotline to it. It does have forced proximity because she is stuck in this kingdom, which is actually that the castle is built into a mountain, and so she is stuck in this like very doomy, gloomy place, and it is really affecting her because, you know, she was an island child. She grew up with, you know, all this freedom, and now she's stuck in this place where there is no sun, and she begins to fall for her betrothed's younger brother. Or is he an older brother? It's just his brother. And oh my god, I loved it. I love that forced proximity because they're like in this place together and she's not allowed to leave. She can't leave it. And then there's also there's only one bed trope in the second book, so love that. Then another YA fantasy that is a duology and also has the forced proximity trope is The Bonecryer's Moon by Kathryn Purdy. Why does this have forced proximity? Well, because she's captured by a dude and they're stuck together because if they leave, they will both die. So why am I laughing at that? I don't know. So in this world, there are women called bone criers, and they have a sacred duty to ferry the dead into the afterlife so that they do not stay with the living. The only problem is that to officially become a bone crier, to receive your full powers, you must not only obtain 3 bones from 3 animals, you must also sacrifice your one true love. So Elise is our main character, and she's been training since birth to become the matriarch of the bone criers, and she has just been awaiting her day that she can perform her ritual and perform her sacrifice and kill her beloved so that she can take her place as the most powerful. Then you have Bastian, and his father was slain by a bone crier because his father was that one true love. And ever since then, Bastian has sworn to one day track down the bone criers and take them apart. And so on the night of Elise's sacrifice, on the night of her ritual to find her true love, Bastian shows up. And she is very thrown off by this because he is there, but he's not really fully under the spell, and he ends up actually taking her captive instead. The only problem is that if Elise does not complete the ritual and kill him, they will both die from the ritual being left undone. I freaking love this. They both want to kill each other. She wants to kill him because she wants to gain her power and not die. He wants to kill her because he wants vengeance for his dad. The only problem is that if he does kill her, he will automatically die because of the ritual not being complete. And so it's just so intense. There's like a character in this that I hated from the start, hated her towards the end. She's still one of my least favorite characters that I've ever read about. Oh, she frustrated me to no end. There's also another side character, third POV, called Sabine, and she is Elise's best friend who's trying to track her down once she becomes a captive of Bastion's, and oh, so good. Then we have another new adult book, and that is, well, is it new adult or is it just flat out adult? I think it's just flat out adult as a fantasy romance. But this is A Heart of Blood and Ashes by ɪḻᴏᴏᴅᴅ. So we're following Matic, and he is a crown prince who has now suddenly come into ascension because his parents have just been murdered. And he believes that the person who has murdered his family is from a rival kingdom. And so he decides that before he ascends the throne, he's going to get revenge against them, and he's going to start by that by taking their crown princess. However, when Matic does capture her, he ends up finding that she's not at all what he thought, and she actually proposes that they do marry because she wants out of her father's kingdom. And so it's like a captive but then doesn't become captive romance, and it's like forced proximity because they're like stuck together, and there's like a marriage that blooms. It is 100% like an angsty slow burn, like enemies to lovers with like a lot of political intrigue to it. The series is called A Gathering of Dragons, but there are no dragons in the book, so it's just kind of weird. I'm not really sure why that is. But yeah, it's a fantasy romance, but like a barbarian fantasy romance, which is like really sick because you don't really see that too often. So definitely check it out for forced proximity. Next we have a book that features the There's Only One Bed trope, and that is A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. This is a mixture of Hades and Persephone with Beauty and the Beast. So for centuries, elves have taken young women from Luella's kingdom to be human queens. Now, Luella has never ever expected that she would become one of these human queens. She doesn't really have that mark of her. However, one day she is surprised when the Elf King ends up arriving and demands that she be his wife. Luella knows that being chosen to be a human queen is basically a mark of death, but she becomes surprised when she learns that there's actually more that the Elf King wants from her. It turns out that she might have the key to saving their dying kingdom. This has a There's Only One Bed trope in it, and that's always the best. It's not necessarily like too forced proximity, but There's Only One Bed trope is in it, so like have to recommend. It is new adult, but it's not like too spicy, you know what I mean? It's kind of like light new adult, so yeah. And then lastly we have Blood Heir by Emily Wan Zao. Now this is kind of a very loose Anastasia retelling, like in the like loosest terms possible. But I loved this book so much. Also my Lumicrate edition has these really sick sprayed edges, so like how can you not love that? But this does have a There's Only One Bed trope in it, and it is forced proximity because our two characters are like stuck with each other, like traveling cross country, which is great because I also love fantasy books that have to do with like travel, so yeah. So in this world there are people with affinities, and these like different kind of like magical traits. They vary from person to person. No one person has the same affinity as someone else. These affinities are actually outlawed. People who do have affinities are actually just taken as slaves or they are killed. And our crown princess, Anastasia, actually has an affinity, and her affinity is blood. And this is extremely dangerous. She lost control of her magic as a child and ended up killing like a bunch of people, and so she has been kept under wraps ever since then. Until the night that her father is murdered and Anna is blamed for his death. Anna knows who killed her father, she saw him, and so she is determined to prove that she was not the killer, and so she ends up escaping. When she escapes, she ends up deciding that if she's going to prove her innocence, she needs the help of someone very powerful, and so she enlists the help of Ṛamzan Quicktongue. Ṛamzan is a very notorious and cunning crime lord, and so he decides to help Anna on her quest because she will then help him with his. And so they are both using each other for like their own means. They're both keeping secrets from one another. He doesn't know that she's the crown princess. He doesn't know that she has blood magic, while she doesn't know, well, she just doesn't trust him because he's this crime lord. He's basically very similar to Kaz Brekker. He does everything for himself. He's trying to move his way up in the world. The people he was working for tried to kill him at one point and tried to put him in jail, so he's like trying to get revenge against them. They can't really trust each other, but they're both stuck with each other because they're both on the run from being like almost executed and put in prison. And so I love this. It's a trilogy and I cannot wait to continue on with it. I do have the second book to read, but I've only read the first one. So it's forced proximity because they're stuck traveling together. They have like tents and all those kind of things. And you know, there's only one bed, there's only one tent. So definitely love this. And then the last two recs I do have are two that I feel like everyone knows about by now, so I'm just gonna like mention them and not go into them. The first one's gonna be Serpent and Dove by Selby Mahoran, and the second one's gonna be A Quantum Miss Inferi by Sarah J Maas. A Quantum Miss Inferi, the only one bed trope, is like the OG one. The OG sexy, there's only one bed trope in it, so do love that. So yeah, those are my forced proximity recommendations for fantasy books. Do let me know down below what other tropes you would like to see me show you guys, because I read a lot of fantasy books and I'd love to make more trope recommendations. And I do have some planned to do with just regular romances as well, another version of this video, but that'll be coming in a little while. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please don't hesitate to click that like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel. And until next time, thanks a bunch everyone. Bye bye!